major decisions underway right now on Capitol Hill. Republican lawmakers say their party's steering committee is meeting today to decide which Republican members will sit on the most powerful committees in the House of Representatives, and it's giving us all some new insights into the deals that now Speaker Kevin McCarthy may have made with his hardline opponents to get their votes and secure the gavel. As 4 of the previous holdouts who voted against McCarthy on ballot after ballot today scored coveted committee seats. Also on Capitol Hill today, the new leader of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee is setting his sights on bank accounts of members of the Biden family accused of cashing in on their last name. We'll have more on that in just a moment, but we're going to start with CNN's chief congressional correspondent, Manu Raju, who has a closer look at McCarthy's strategy as he chooses which Republicans to reward.
House Republicans behind the scenes crafting their strategy for the next 2 years and working to implement the deals Kevin McCarthy had to cut to win the speakership. To win over his holdouts, McCarthy agreed to name more members of the hard-right Freedom Caucus to serve on the most powerful committees in the House, giving them more sway to shape their party's agenda, including 2 who flipped to the GOP leader, Andrew Clyde and Michael Cloud, to serve on the committee that funds the government.
We're looking at, the different ideas and philosophies and ideologies and make sure that as the bills come out of committee, they already reflect the entire conference.
McCarthy planning to reward some of his allies, including firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene, who lost her spots in 2021 when Democrats punished her over her past controversies.
Has he given you that assurance to be on the Oversight Committee?
Well, I have assurance to be on committees, but I haven't been promised any committees.
As McCarthy has already selected his committee chairman and preps an aggressive investigative agenda, his biggest test could be navigating another key aspect of his deal, funding the federal government and raising the national debt limit.
That is going to mean some tension with the Senate. That is going to mean some tension with the other party. But I'm not concerned about the tension. What I'm concerned about is a country that has been engaged in financial irresponsibility for so long.
According to a slide obtained by CNN, McCarthy's deal says the House GOP will reject any negotiations with the Senate on funding the government if the levels are above GOP demands, and saying the House will not agree to raise the debt limit to avoid a debt default without commensurate fiscal reforms, setting up a major showdown with the White House.
And if you're going to ask for an increase in the limit, at some point in time, you've got to sit down and say, why are we hitting the limit?
All as GOP leaders grappling with a major headache. Freshman Congressman George Santos facing GOP calls back home to resign after lying about his past. But if he steps aside, it would set up a special election in a New York district that Democrats could flip. McCarthy, for now, siding with Santos.
But right now, the voters have a voice in the decision. It's not where people pick and choose based upon what somebody's press says. So he will continue to serve.
George Santos wanted a seat on the House Financial Services Committee, but he did not get that. But McCarthy indicating that he would get other lower profile committees. Now, we're also learning, Jake, about some of the rewards he gave to members of the House Freedom Caucus. That is that hard right group. We're learning that 16 members of the House Freedom Caucus got spots on 4 of the top committees. That includes 6 of the holdouts who initially voted against McCarthy, but now they're being reordered for seats on the Appropriations Committee, Financial Services Committee, as the other major panels will also be decided in the days ahead, and they will be represented there as well.
All right, Manu Raju on Capitol Hill for us. Thanks so much. Also in our politics lead today, the new chairman of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee wants some of the financial records of members of the Biden family. Congressman James Comer of Kentucky asked the Treasury Department to turn over bank information for President Biden's son Hunter, as well as the president's businessman brother James, known as Jimmy, and several other family associates who are accused of profiting off the Biden family name and connections. As CNN's Sarah Murray reports for us now, Republicans claim some of those deals could potentially compromise President Biden.
House Oversight Chair James Comer wasting no time launching his long-promised probe into the Biden family.
I want to be clear. This is an investigation of Joe Biden, and that's where the committee will focus.
Comer demanding financial records from the U.S. Treasury Department and public testimony from former Twitter executives after the social media company temporarily suppressed a story about Hunter Biden and his laptop in 2020. The letters call for bank activity reports for President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, the president's brother, James Biden, and a handful of associates and related companies, as well as any communications between the White House and Treasury. The Kentucky Republican trying to make the case that foreign business deals by Biden family members could compromise the president.
What is the Biden family business? I would argue it's influence peddling. And Joe Biden was not truthful with the American people during the presidential campaign when he said he had no idea what his family was involved in.
But that is merely an allegation, one the newly minted chairman has yet to prove, and Joe Biden has denied playing any role in his son's overseas deals.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas deals.
The bank reports known as suspicious activity reports Comer is clamoring for don't necessarily indicate wrongdoing. Financial institutions file millions annually, and few lead to law enforcement inquiries. A White House spokesman dismissed the GOP moves as political stunts driven by the most extreme MAGA members of their caucus in an effort to get attention on Fox News. As Republicans flex their new investigative powers, they've also established a new select subcommittee focused on the, quote, weaponization of the federal government, and particularly DOJ and the FBI.
There's going to be a select subcommittee that's going to focus on that. We've had 14 whistleblowers come talk to us about how political that place has become.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy pointing to the panel as a vehicle to delve into the classified records recently found in President Joe Biden's former private office.
Why does his Department of Justice treat people differently? Every time we find something that comes out before the election dealing with Biden's family, it's pushed under the rug. It's called a lie.
Now, Jake, we are still waiting to see who else is going to end up on the Oversight Committee as well as this subcommittee on the weaponization of government. But we are hearing today from Jamie Raskin, who is the top Democrat on oversight. He's slamming James Comer already for pursuing debunked and hyperpartisan conspiracy theories on the Biden family. Jake.
All right, Sarah Murray, thanks so much. Let's bring in CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig. Ellie, let's start with this new select committee designed to investigate what they call, the Republicans call, the weaponization of the Justice Department and the FBI. Is this a legitimate line of inquiry, do you think?
No, I don't think it is, Jake. I reject the underlying premise that DOJ has been weaponized. First of all, is DOJ investigating Donald Trump? You bet. Has Donald Trump engaged in conduct that requires investigation? Absolutely. And by the way, you know who else DOJ is investigating right now? Joe Biden. You know who else they're investigating right now? Hunter Biden. Now, look, the attorney general is a political appointee of the president. But when he gets vetted through the Senate, the main thing that he's being vetted for is, will this person maintain the political independence? And I think it's really important to keep in mind, the vast, vast majority of people who work at DOJ do not care about politics. I was there for Republican administration, Democratic administration. It made zero difference whatsoever into the way we went about our cases. So I reject the basic premise that there's been a weaponization to begin with.
What happens if Attorney General Garland or others at the Justice Department, including the FBI, just refuse to cooperate with this committee?
First of all, I think Merrick Garland can, should, and must refuse to cooperate if he is asked about specific pending criminal investigations. If he crosses that line, he will jeopardize those investigations, and he will jeopardize the reputation of the people who are being investigated. They're entitled to a presumption of innocence. If Merrick Garland refuses, then this new committee can try to hold him in contempt of Congress. The committee would have to vote for it. Then the full House would have to vote for it. The catch is it would then go where for prosecution? To the Department of Justice. So it's only going to be symbolic. And Jake, there's some history here. We managed to go 230 some years in our history without ever having an attorney general held in contempt. However, Eric Holder was then held in contempt in 2012. Bill Barr was held in contempt in 2019. Of course, they were never prosecuted, but we'll see if Merrick Garland is willing to have his name added to that list.
How much do you think, I mean, do you not think that there's anything worth investigating here when it comes to potentially shady deals or ethically questionable ones by Hunter Biden, by Jimmy Biden, who's made a lot of money, while his brother was becoming a very prominent politician? Or do you think it's just purely politics?
No, I think there's absolutely a good faith basis to investigate, but I think the investigations need to be kept separate. First of all, DOJ has every right to investigate Hunter Biden for his business dealings. They are doing that. They've been doing that for several years now. That case is ongoing in the District of Delaware. Congress is free to investigate as well. I believe in broad oversight powers of Congress. But what they're not free to do, in my view, and I think constitutionally in terms of separation of powers, is drag in the Attorney General and say, okay, Mr. Attorney General, where are you in your criminal investigation? Open up your books. Tell us about that. That, I think, is the line that can't be crossed.
All right, Alex.